This video is brought to you by the 3-Minute Board Game patrons. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon. Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the 3-Minute Board Games Awards for 2025. Our awards have a little bit of a difference. We don't just cover the previous year, we tend to cover the previous 2 years at the same time. And the reason for that is it takes some games a bit of time to get here, and it definitely takes me a while to get to play them. So you'll see plenty of games from 2024 in our 2025 awards. And that's okay. Now these awards are just for a bit of a laugh, they're just for a bit of fun, and they're an opportunity for me to shine spotlight on some games that I consider pretty damn neat. Now like every single award out there, they only have the power you give them. All awards are a matter of opinion. These ones just happen to be mine. And if the game doesn't feature on here, there's a good chance I didn't even see it. There are a lot of games that come out every year. And there's a very high chance that I simply did not have an opportunity to play or even consider a game you might think would be one of the top games of the year. However, if you do mention in the comments what games you think should have been considered for Best Game of 2025, I might try to play them in 2026. And of course, using our award structure, that means they'll be considered for next year's awards. Now as always, 3-Minute Board Games does not do paid content. Let me guarantee 100% that no one paid to get one of these awards. However, 3-Minute Board Games really does exist because of our patrons. And if you want to keep independent voices in board game media that aren't bought and sold by publishers, consider supporting an independent outlet like 3-Minute Board Games on Patreon. And with that out of the way, let's get on to the awards. Our small box game of the year is Flip 7. Now Flip 7 is a bit of a nothing game. It's got cards in it valued from 1 to 12, and each round of the game you're trying to get as many points as you can without drawing a duplicate card. It's a push your luck game. It's a game with a rules pamphlet, not a rules book, so it doesn't take too long to explain. How it feels when you're playing it though is like a madcap round of blackjack that's gone entirely out of control. Instead of just trying to cap to 21, you're trying to get as many as you can. And everyone else is doing the same. It is a fantastic little push your luck game. It's not super strategic or tactical or anything like that, but it is a great time sink and a lot of fun while you're playing it. Flip 7's a game that's suitable for all ages as well. It's not going to win heavy strategy game of the year, but it's really, really good for what it sets out to do. And that's being a fast, frantic push your luck game that gets a lot of laughs at the table. Foundation games are a term we use on the channel to describe simple games that have great fundamental board gaming mechanics to them. These are games that are excellent in their own right, but sometimes get derisively called filler games. I prefer the term foundation games because they're rock-solid games in and of themselves, and more complex games tend to be built on top of these simple mechanics that you learn in foundation games. And our foundation game of 2025 is Parks 2nd Edition. Parks is an exceedingly pleasant looking game. It's all about traveling around the USA and looking at their amazing national parks. And along the way you'll create campsites, you'll encounter wildlife, you'll take photos, you'll visit national parks, and you'll generally have a very good time. It's a perfectly pleasant game. Parks 2nd Edition includes a lot of the features from the expansions of the original Parks, and I think it overall ups its quality as a game. If you've played something like Tokaido, this to me is just it's a better game than Tokaido, and it does a lot of similar things. We'll have a full review of Parks 2nd Edition on the channel shortly after this video goes live. I'll talk about the game a lot more there. Now, our cooperative game of the year was a Patron's Choice nominee from last year. It was one of the top 5 games as voted by the patrons of 3-Minute Board Games. It didn't win that award, but its nomination made me look at the game and pick up a copy. And that game is Slay the Spire. Now I've played a reasonable amount of Slay the Spire, the computer game. If you're familiar with it, I got up to about 6 or 7 Ascension for all 4 characters. And I feel that definitely qualifies me to talk about the computer game with a lot of confidence. I only like this one as a cooperative game. I don't care for it as a solo game. And I know a lot of people have been playing this one solo a lot, and that's all well and good. But to me, that's not what this is for. You see, the solo mode, you can play on the app, and the app is deeper and gives you more variety. The real point of difference here is Slay the Spire as a cooperative game. That is something you cannot do on the app. And it opens up a different type of gameplay from what you get playing the solo game. Players specialize. Players build their characters to do different roles. Now, of course, you could just play it multi-handed and get that experience of being able to specialize in the solo game, but I really do feel that it's best suited as a cooperative game. There's a really good vibe at the table, as you work into your specialties, as everyone picks up their little bits of treasure, as you go through the game and, work as a team, an evolving team. And that's what makes it cool for me. It has the best elements of deck building mixed with the best elements of a cooperative game. And sure, I'd give this an 8 out of 10 as a solo game, but as a cooperative game, it's more like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Now this one's a funny one, because if it came along a little earlier in the year, it could have been one of my top 5 games of the year. But as of recording this segment, I've really only got to play it solo so far. I'm looking forward to teaching people how to play this game, because I've had an absolute hoot playing it solo. And despite arriving at my house on the 10th of December, it was my 4th most played solo game of the year, after Final Girl, Arkham Horror, and Spirit Island. And that game is Moon Colony Bloodbath. I've been playing so much of this over the last month. I'll be finished in the shed, I'll be working on something, and I'll just pull it out and be like, I could go back inside and do something else, or I could just play a 15-20 minute game of Moon Colony Bloodbath, and I blast through it. What this is it's kind of like a deck building game when the game is trying to kill you. The game kind of goes in 2 stages. The first, you're trying to build up a tableau of cards and put stuff into the deck to make yourself stronger. There's like a central deck that you draw from and things happen. The second half of the game is trying to survive once the central deck turns on you and bad, terrible things happen. You have to make choices to blow up the engine that you've built bit by bit. And you're trying to hang on to the very, very end of the game, and I still haven't managed it! I've got within 1 card of it so far, but I still have not managed to survive Moon Colony Bloodbath yet. Now, there's a good chance this turns out to be an excellent competitive game, in which case I'm going to reconsider it for more awards next year. But right now, this is my solo game of 2025. And we'll have a review of this one coming out on the channel shortly after these awards go live as well. I probably sound more excited about Moon Colony Bloodbath than any of the other games I've talked about so far, because I'm just having really, really good memories thinking back to just playing it a couple of days ago. I love a game that kicks you in the teeth and says, try harder. And this is one of those games. Really, really enjoyed it. It's been a funny year for New Zealand board games because, well, Endeavour Deep Sea picked up all the big awards, it seemed. It won the Origins Award and the Spiel over at Essen. Unfortunately, I can't give Endeavour Deep Sea the Game of the Year award because I gave it the Game of the Year award last year. So it won our overall prize as well as our New Zealand Game of the Year. It's an absolute banger. It deserves all the awards it gets. Congratulations again to Jarrett and Carl. You've made an absolute wonderful game, and it's one game I have talked to about 5 different groups over this year. And I thought there were 3 really good games to come out of New Zealand over the last 18 months or so. The second one of those is the Anarchy, and I gave that an award last year as well. So that was our solo game of the year. And then aside from that, it was a little bit of a weak year for New Zealand board gaming. There were a couple of fun but lighter titles that came out, such as Garden Rush, which is a 2-player dueling game about drafting vegetables and forming shapes. We're going to cover this one the next time we do one of those multi-reviews on the channel where I look at 10 or so games at once. And the same with Glimstone Grab. This is a cooperative game where you're trying to collect gems and rescue children. It's actually quite a neat puzzle, and it's quite fun as a solo game. We're going to do a lot more information on this when we do the reviews of them. And they're nice games. They're good little games. But they weren't really the sort of awe-inspiring thing like Endeavour Deep Sea was, or even Hadrian's Wall was. So, in the end, I looked across the potential games, and I picked what I think is one of the other 3 best games that came out of New Zealand in the last 18 months. And that game is... It's actually Red Dust Rebellion. I'm giving myself the award. I said I wouldn't give myself an award on my channel for doing the best game of any category or anything like that, because I didn't think I deserved it, but I legitimately think with the ground cleared, with Endeavour Deep Sea and Anarchy not being eligible because they've already won the awards, that Red Dust Rebellion was the best game coming out of New Zealand over the last 18 months or so. Now, it's a little bit silly to give myself an award, but I'll stand by it. I think we put out a really good game here. We have won an award overseas as well. We won the Charles S. Roberts Wargaming Award for Best Political Wargame. That was pretty cool. But yeah, Red Dust Rebellion. I think this is about the best game to come out of New Zealand in the last 18 months or so. After Endeavour Deep Sea, of course. check it out. It's legitimately neat, and I'm still having fun playing it. And that's cool. Like, my game's been out for 18 months or so, and I'm still having a great time playing it. Now, the purpose of this award is to shine a spotlight on a game that I think people have been sleeping on. And the game that might have come out to a little fanfare, but it's actually really damn good. The game in question here is Kalamala from Alley Cat Games. This is what you might consider a very beige Euro game, but it's absolutely brilliant. It has this amazing action selection system, which doesn't look like much until you start playing the game and realize how tight and interconnected all the moves are. And the whole game's scoring system is laid out in front of you at the start of the game, so you know exactly when things are going to be scored, and it's different each time. That changes the priorities and how you do things. But it's one of those old school Euro games where you are just on top of each other, stabbing and backstabbing each other without direct conflict. It's very much in the same school of thinking as Hearts of Teutonica. It has a wonderful retro vibe and feel to it, but it's this kind of Euro game that I'm really digging these days. Not ones that have excessive amounts of chrome and lots of things for you to do, but ones that feel like a knife fight in a phone box. Ones that afterwards you're cursing the one move you made wrong that left you out of position for the whole game. Ain't Kalamala is a savage, brilliant game, and I reckon more people should give it a go, especially if you like the sound of all that. Check out our review on the channel for it. It's a really neat game. This award exists because sometimes I don't get to games for a very, very long time. And in that case, I'd like to have a spot in the awards where I can look back at a game that I've missed and gone, hey, this game is really, really cool. The runner-up here is Inish, which is a fantastic area control game with stunning and amazing art. I really, really enjoyed this one, and it's an absolute keeper. It's probably going to rocket up my top 100 as well if I play it a bit more often. But it actually lost out at the post to Grand Austria Hotel. Grand Austria Hotel does a lot of things I love in a game. The first of those are the staff cards. Now, you get handed these at the start of the game, and each of them breaks the game in one or more ways. Usually the player who wins the game is the person who takes their staff cards and maximizes them to the best of their ability. The second thing I like is competitive drafting. I do love drafting in a game. And here it's the ability to evaluate what to draft and when. How to take those things and mix them up with your staff cards to build an engine, a hotel that hums along at a rapid pace. Plus there's something insanely satisfying about filling in the little rooms and filling up your hotel. And it's all wrapped up in a beautifully bright, wonderful package. Grand Austria Hotel is a stunning Euro game, and definitely a keeper in our permanent collection. I feel like my tastes in games are slightly changing a little, and it's heading more towards things like Grand Austria Hotel and Kalamala, and away from big chrome games. And I think that's probably a good thing. Next up, we have the Patron Choice Awards. Now, these are all voted by from the patrons of 3 Minute Board Games. We start off with a really big list of games. We go through one round of voting and whittle it down to a half dozen finalists. Then everyone gets to vote on the last game. Now, the 5 runners-up this year were The Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, Molly House, The Lord of the Rings, Fate of the Fellowship, Moon Colony Bloodbath, and The Old King's Crown. Now, of those games, there's going to be a review for Moon Colony Bloodbath coming out really shortly, and I've secured copies of the 2 Lord of the Rings games as well. So I've just got to play those through a few times, and we'll get those on the channel, hopefully in a couple of months. I've reached out for a copy of Molly House, and I will reach out for a copy of The Old King's Crown as well. So hopefully we can get all of those games covered on the channel in the next 6 months or so. Because I tend to trust my patrons on what's a good game and what isn't. They've very rarely steered me wrong in that regard. And as they pay to keep the channel going, it's probably a good idea for me to review the games they want to see covered. If you want to see games covered, you can also join our Patreon and help steer the ship. And for the patrons game of the year, they picked Galactic Cruise. I'm also going to take this moment to say it won a second award this year from me, and that is for Best Art and Graphic Design. If you haven't looked at the rulebooks and stuff for Galactic Cruise, they're absolutely gorgeous. Ian O'Toole's outdone himself. This is probably the nicest rulebook I've ever seen. It's simply gorgeous. However, as a game, what's Galactic Cruise like? Well, it's pretty damn good. I have gone off heavily chromed Euro games recently. They tend to take a lot of time to learn, and in the end I wasn't finding the enjoyment I was getting out of them match the amount of effort it took to get into the game. Galactic Cruise was an exception to that. It's a remarkably heavy Euro game. There's a ton of moving parts going on here. The board is super busy, and there's something like 14 different actions you can do. But they all make sense within the central conceit of the game. You are trying to build and launch tourism rockets. So what are your actions? They're things like finding people to go on your cruise, marketing your cruise, building the rocket, building the different components within the rockets, getting the materials you need for the rockets, launching the rockets. It all makes sense. And I found it an absolute delight as far as a heavy game goes to teach and play. And there are several other heavy games that I've played lately that I wouldn't want to teach again. Things like Praga Caput Regni or Tiletum. They're games that are pretty complex, and I just don't care to explain them to anyone, because explaining why the egg mechanic exists in Praga Caput Regni doesn't make a lot of sense. Whereas Galactic Cruise, everything in here makes game sense. Nothing seems to happen because it's a game. Everything happens because it's sort of almost modeling the operations of a space cruiser company. And I think that's really neat. And that's why Galactic Cruise is a game I really like. And probably why my patrons picked it as their Patron's Choice Game of the Year. Also, you really have to check out the rulebook. It's so good. Before we jump into the bottom 5 and top 5 games of the year, a little plug for my book, 101 Board Games to Try Before You Die of Boredom. This is a fun, compact, colourful book about 101 board games I think are really neat. There's a specific focus in here on newer games that look great as well. So I went for games that not only are great to play, but also look great on the table. And it's wonderfully photographed, and there's lots of pictures and stuff in here, and a guide. And it's just a great little book and a great conversation starter, and something you can leave lying around so people who don't know that much about board games can pick it up and go, oh, that one looks quite fun. Many years ago, my friends and I had a role-playing game called Conveniently Far Future, which is a wacky science fiction comedy space exploration game. Very similar tone to Futurama. When we saw Wandering Galaxy, we were like, wow, cool, this looks like a board game that fits that kind of theme. And I had a group that was super excited to play it. Within 45 minutes, that group wanted to quit. The game is full of an awful lot of ship maintenance and busy work that gets in the way of the fun encounters, plus a resolution system that's just way overwrought for what this game is. Everything felt really arbitrary and random, and not at all fun. At no point did we feel like we were in charge of our own destiny. That whole group quit at the end of that session, and I had to play through the next couple of scenarios by myself to continue testing the game. That has never happened on the channel before when I've put out a story game. People at least stay to see a little bit more of the story. That whole team, they tapped out. Number 5 best game of the year is Kalamala. I've already given this an award for being the underdog game of the year, the under the radar game of the year, and everything I said there repeats here. Kalamala is a vicious little game, and worthy of being our 5th best game of the year. Our 4th worst game of the year is Catan New Energies. It takes all the things you didn't really care about in Catan and dials them up to 11 and adds a whole bunch more complexity to the game that it doesn't need, as well as an alternative victory condition and just a whole bunch of busy work. There is absolutely no reason for me to recommend Catan New Energies to anyone over original Catan. Everything it does worse. Our number 4 game is Skyrise. This game took the idea of auctions and did something really different with them. And I think it's really, really clever. It's an auction game where you're physically bidding on where you're going to build. So every time you bid, it changes what the lot is. I've never seen that in an auction game before, where the lot changes after every bid. Normally it's a fixed lot and you bid on that thing. Here, you're changing and snaking where the lot goes. And I think that's really clever. Plus, it's a really pretty, neato game. Our 3rd worst game of the year is Builders of Baldur's Gate. This game, for me, commits a cardinal sin. And that's making a game that looks cool, that's terrible to play. It doesn't want you to finish the game. You see, in Builders of Baldur's Gate, you can get to a point where you've built a points-generating engine that is more effective for you to generate points for yourself than it is to advance the game. You reach a state where you are accumulating points but don't want the game to advance. You just want to run up the score. the onus is then on everyone else to just finish the game. So once you're ahead, you just keep going ahead. It's the antithesis of good game design to me, to have the action in the game that generates you most points not be the one that drives the game forward to its conclusion. Number 3 Game of the Year. We've already talked about Galactic Cruise. It was our Patron's Pick of the Year, and I thought it was a really neat game as well. It's my number 3 Game of the Year, which, considering how I've turned off playing really superweight heavy Euros a lot this year, the fact this ranks so high says a whole lot of good things about it. Anyway, if you're looking for a sleek, heavyweight Euro that makes a lot of sense and has a lot of options to it, check out Galactic Cruise. It's a big box game, but it's a pretty big box game, and it's got a lot of depth as well. We have a tie at second worst game of the year because they're by the same publisher, and that publisher doesn't exist anymore. And those games are Bardwood Grove and Tallywood Rally. These were 2 games that were follow-ups to this company's big hit, Merchant's Cove. The problem is, both these games are just nonsense. They're both incredibly ugly, confusing, and weird games that just felt like they were slapped together and not particularly well tested. These are the kind of games a company puts out when it's dying. Both these games are absolute messes, and I'm completely not surprised that the company went under as a result. I can't imagine what went through their minds thinking, yeah, this is a game we want to take to market. This is exactly the thing we want to make a good product. Our number 2 new game of the year is Stationfall. This thing is madness in a box, and I absolutely adore it. I've heard it described as a party game for super heavy gamers that's been dialed up to 11, and that's pretty much it. It's a story generator. Crazy things happen. You can't take the game too seriously. The premise is you're on a space station that's about to fall out of orbit, and everything's turned to custard. You are one of an eclectic group of characters on board that station, each with their own goals. The thing is, no one knows who you're playing, and you don't know who anyone else is playing. And people can take control of other people's characters and do things with them. It is slapstick, silly fun, and I adore Stationfall. It is a bear to teach. It's a really complex game, but again, most of the things you do in the game make sense. The tricky things are knowing what each of the characters does. So this game does get better as the group gets more familiar with its unique rules and picadillos. But as far as games go, it's wonderful. Such a good time. So many good stories after only a handful of plays. Now this wasn't close. There are other terrible games I've played this year, or mediocre games I've played this year, but nothing comes close to Healthy Heart Hospital 3rd Edition. The reason for that is I love Healthy Heart Hospital 2nd Edition, and have been campaigning for this game to get a 3rd edition and a reprint for years. And when it finally came out, the publisher just dumped it out, didn't do any marketing for it, and not only that, they gutted the essence of the game and gave it absolute rubbish generic art. This is an absolute crying shame what they did to Healthy Heart Hospital. All of the core mechanics in the game, the great decision points the game had, were all whittled down, seemingly by committee to make them more easily accessible. And it just made the game toothless, like you didn't actually have anything to play, you just went along with the process. What made Healthy Heart Hospital 2nd Edition a great game for me is that I could do a lot of bag manipulation of the game. You see, the game has a cube bag, and as you pull cubes out, you can control what goes out and what comes back in. And the color of the cubes you pull out makes a difference on the game. You had mechanisms to change what went back in, and they got rid of most of those. They decided that bit of the game was too complex, so it's just going to be whatever you pull out of the bag. So that's like having a deck building game and going, oh no, you can't add any new cards in because they'll unbalance the game. You just play it through with your starter set or something. It's bad. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, as it appears as though the designer has got the rights back to the game, so there might be a 4th edition coming in the future, and hopefully, they do a lot better things with it than what Starling Games did with Healthy Heart Hospital 3rd edition. Because that was a crime. And here we move on to our final game, our Game of the Year. And if you were to make a list of things I like from a board game and put them all together, you'd probably come up with something like this year's winner. I love multi-use cards. I love science fiction. I love engine building. I like a little bit of competition between players. And I like games that allow me to make combos and chain things together and feel very clever. And CT, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence from Czech Games Edition, does exactly that. This game ticks so many boxes for me. It was like it was designed with me in mind. But it also gave me things I wasn't expecting in a game that I really enjoy. And one of those are the aliens that you encounter in this game. You see, in SETI, you're searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, and you find it. And when you find it, there's 2 of 5 potential alien encounters that you have. And they come into the game one at a time. And they change the game, giving you a midpoint changeover. We have to go, ooh, how has my strategy worked to this point? It also means you need to keep your strategies open in the game. You can't hammer in on one approach because the aliens that turn up might change the priorities in the game and give you different ways of scoring. I'm really looking forward to the expansion that adds in extra alien types as well. And this is the sort of game where I could see myself getting a whole bunch of expansions for. If you like games like Terraforming Mars or Ark Nova, you will probably enjoy SETI, where the game really is about building up what's in your tableau, but there is sort of a central space where you're interacting as well. There's something you're building towards. SETI is a wonderful game with amazing board presence, tons of options to explore, different paths to victory, a wonderful theme, and great components. It's also a very enjoyable game to play that makes you feel very clever when you win it. And for me, it is easily my #1 game of 2025. So that's it. That's our awards for the year. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for games we've missed and that you think I would like, put them in the comments below as well, and I might get round to them for next year's awards. And once again, 3 Minute Board Games is not too paid content. Keep us independent by supporting us on Patreon. And if you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, take care all.